Today, I want to talk about finding yourself again after a divorce, healing after divorce, rebuilding your life after divorce. So many women will take a person back who was unfaithful to them because it's easier for financial freedom just to be with their kids all the time. Men stay in marriages that are empty and toxic because they don't want to be without their kids, because they don't want to go through the process of a divorce. And as much as a divorce is difficult, as much as a divorce is painful, there is beauty in the healing when you get to the other side. And that's the side that I'm trying to talk to you about getting to. But it takes patience, and it takes work, and it takes a whole lot of crying. It takes a whole lot of healing, and it takes a whole lot of learning yourself. I finally found my own happiness. I created my own happiness. I stopped attaching my happiness. I loved myself for the first time. I have confidence now. And when you do those things, when you love yourself, you don't need it from anyone else. Hello, everyone. Janna here. Thank you for tuning in. Today, I want to talk about finding yourself again after a divorce, healing after divorce, rebuilding your life after divorce. I went through a tumultuous divorce after 15 years of marriage, the ultimate betrayal, and having to go from a full-time mom to my 3 kids to 50% of the time. And it was the absolute most earth-shattering heartbreak I've ever been through. And I honestly never thought anything could be worse than Lyme disease was. And Lyme disease was an absolute hell. But this was pure heartbreak. Lyme disease was hell because my health was deteriorating and I was losing my battle, right? But divorce was absolutely earth-shattering heartbreak. I mean, my heart was broken in a million pieces in front of me, and not just for me, but for my kids, and having been, betrayed and infidelity, and going through that and living with that for a few years before the divorce, with trying to keep a brave face and make it seem like everything was okay for the kids, and being done a certain way by a narcissistic partner. I mean, I was run through the ringer, and nobody knew. I maintained the Stepford wife image, and no one knew what I was going through. And, I don't even know if I realized at the time how bad it was. And it's always when we're on the other side of it that you look back and you see, like, wow, I can't believe I put up with that shit. That's a good sign, by the way, when you're able to look back on something. The moment you can look back on something is the moment that you realize, hey, I've done some healing, right? And so, I talk about this in my book, my #1 bestseller, Unfuck Your Mind. I talk about a little bit of that marriage and finding out and what that was like and what it was like to heal from it in the process. And so that's what I want to talk about today. Is rebuilding your life after divorce, finding yourself again, and just kind of what it looks like. The most absolute awful thing I ever could have thought of happening with my 3 kids was not being with them all the time, was a divorce. And I didn't want to stay married after I found out of the betrayal. But it was such a shock, so unexpected, didn't see it coming. Was told that it was all in my head and he was being faithful, and my gut just told me otherwise. My gut told me otherwise for 6 months. And I was told I was crazy. I was told I was insecure. It was in my head. And it wasn't in my head. It was absolutely true. And then when I confronted him about it, to be told, well, I mean, my gosh, you caught me. She's a ray of sunshine, and you're just difficult. You complain all the time. I'm like, complain all the time? What are you talking about? I can't even get you on the damn phone. because he was with her all the time. And so even though I was told he was working, I knew what that meant, right? So let's get back to it. Finding out of that betrayal was absolutely shocking and painful. And I didn't know how to navigate it. I didn't know. I was sick to my stomach every day, and I was trying to be the best mom for my kids, and I was trying to continue on with our daily life, our daily grind. And that our father's really not home much anymore at all, and they're always wondering where he was, and it was fucking hard, absolutely fucking hard. I'll never do that again, ever, ever. I've told my husband, I've remarried since, and I told him if I ever even get the smallest iota in my gut that you are being unfaithful, that is enough for me. Because anytime I've had that gut feeling, it was right. And you shouldn't have that. I'm not an insecure person, especially now after I've done the healing. But what I have learned more than anything is to never, ever, ever ignore my gut. And I will never for 1 second have that feeling in my gut of infidelity and question it and live with it and wonder and be like, well, I'm not going to ask her. Da, da, da. First of all, they're going to lie, number one. Number two, they're just going to make you feel stupid, and then you're going to regret it. And it doesn't do anything. If I feel that in my gut, it's over. And if for some reason my gut was wrong, well, fucking it's trying to tell me something. Now, that might seem a little harsh, but for any of you that have gone through something similar, you know what I'm talking about. So it was really, really hard to rebuild my life. It took a lot of patience. It was the worst I've ever experienced heartbreak. And I had days it was so painful, I felt like I couldn't fucking breathe. There were days the emotional pain took my fucking breath away. There were days I didn't want to wake up. And the narcissistic abuse part became so much more worse, so much more worse, especially as I found my strength, especially as I rebuilt my life, especially as I learned how to communicate or not communicate with a narcissist. And it was just constant berating, demeaning, put downs. I mean, it was nonstop. And I can't tell you how many hours I cried in my closet, in my bathroom, even when my kids weren't home. For some reason, that's just where I like to cry. My closet, my master bedroom is in the master bathroom. And so there's something very comfortable to me about that. And that's okay. The one thing to know is that healing a heartbreak, it is a roller coaster ride. It is one emotion from another. One might last 5 hours, one might last 6 days. You just don't know. But you have anger, you have sadness, you have pain, you have frustration, you have depression, you have hopes that come in every now and then, and a little bit of self-esteem, and then a little bit of self-confidence. And then it's back to just absolute sadness and absolute pain. And then this is just a roller coaster ride, my friends. But as you ride that wave of emotions, and you work on healing, and you work on shattering your limiting beliefs, and most importantly, without a shadow of a motherfucking doubt that you are not the problem. You are not the problem. The problem, my friends, was the person who couldn't keep their pants on. That's the problem. I absolutely hate it when someone cheats on someone and they have the audacity to tell the person they cheated on, well, you know, if you just would have done this, or, you were just miserable. I didn't mean to, but my gosh, could you blame me? You know what? Go fuck yourself and don't let that door hit you on the ass. And my friends, if you've ever been told that, or if you are ever told that, please, for the love of God, no, that is not true. It just shows how pitiful that person is. And as much as it hurts, it also is the universe telling you that person ain't for you. So I want you to know that, because I have seen too many beautiful women, some I know very well, who have gone through this similar thing, and It has been, years later, and they still feel there was something wrong with them. They still feel they could have done something different. They could have looked better. They could have put up with more. They could have done more sexual things. What the fuck ever. No, that person fell in love with you the way you were, and that person then did to you like they've done to every other person before you and like they're going to do to every other person after. That's just how it is. A person who cheats, a person who cheats always cheats. That's just a fact, 100% fact. And it unfortunately, they never change. So, I want you to know first and foremost that you don't ever take that person back. Taking them back is just walking back into that cage again, walking back into that fire again. And you're not going to have a different result. You got to move on. You got to pick yourself up by the bootstraps and move on. And, you know, it's so easy to look back now and to see so many things. But what I do know is that I never would be where I'm at today if it wasn't for that betrayal and heartbreak. Now, again, I'm gonna say this in as many episodes as it applies to. Free will is the reason I am where I am today. That heartbreak, that ultimate betrayal was part of my path, but it was sent to be a teacher. I had to choose for it to be my teacher. You understand? I could have stayed the victim and I could still be the victim today. And instead, I chose to learn from it. Choosing to learn from something is a choice, it's free will. But when you do it, that's when the universe teaches you. And you learn everything that you were meant to learn to become who you're meant to be, to move up to the next level. And man, I had to shed a lot of layers. I had to shed a lot of old skin. I had to do a lot of healing. I had to shatter limiting beliefs. I had to heal insecurities by shattering limiting beliefs. I had to change the negative tape in my head. All of these things that I discuss in depth in my book, Unfuck Your Mind. And so many women will take a person back who was unfaithful to them because it's easier for financial freedom just to be with their kids all the time. Men stay in marriages that are empty and toxic because they don't want to be without their kids, because they don't want to go through the process of a divorce. And as much as a divorce is difficult, as much as a divorce is painful, there is beauty in the healing when you get to the other side. And that's the side that I'm trying to talk to you about getting to. But it takes patience and it takes work and it takes a whole lot of crying. It takes a whole lot of healing and it takes a whole lot of learning yourself. I finally found my own happiness. I created my own happiness. I stopped attaching my happiness. I loved myself for the first time. I have confidence now. And when you do those things, when you love yourself, you don't need it from anyone else. Therefore, you don't accept anything less than. But when you don't love yourself, you accept a whole bunch of shit you normally wouldn't accept. And that's just the truth. And so, you know, the people around you, the people who are close to you, they also change a little bit. You know, the other side of going through a divorce is that you don't only lose, like for me, for example, I lost my kids half the time, but people who you thought maybe were your friends. And you have to just know that anybody that was your friend because of your partner, don't expect anything from them. I don't care how close you became. That's the one thing I did in the very beginning is I didn't remotely expect any of his friends that had become my so-called friends to stay my friend. And honestly, I didn't want to in a lot of ways because, in my situation, having a narcissistic ex-spouse, I have to be very careful about who I let into my life. I live a very private life, and I know that narcissists manipulate people, and I also know that the lies that were spread about me, which couldn't have been further from the truth, people believed them. And, you know, quite honestly, it was kind of nice to see who my friends really were, because if anybody believed those fucking lies, well, sayonara. Because I don't want anyone in my life who believes something that is so outlandish about me or even questions me. If you question me, you don't get to stay in my life, because those closest to you should always have your back, especially when you're not in the fucking room with them. And, you know, I had to unfriend a lot of people. I had to unfollow a lot of people. I had to block a lot of people. And honestly, it was one of the best things I ever did. And I say that, if you're wondering why am I telling you that, because that's really fucking important in healing. You got to cut out all that shit. I don't want to see fucking pictures. I don't want to see my kids hanging out with the 20 something year old you cheated on me with, and social media. Fuck that. I don't want to see that shit. I don't want nothing to do with you. You got to cut your ties, my friends. You have to. And if it's a narcissist ex, you have got to make it to where texting is just for logistical things with kids. If you have kids, everything else is an email, and it's short and it's sweet, and you only reply to the things that you need to reply to. You have to remember, you don't have to reply. You don't have to let someone know you read their message. You are an adult. No one's your fucking boss. And you do not have to reply to every question that is not of importance. And you most certainly don't need to defend yourself. Why do you want to defend yourself to someone who chose to not be in your life? You've got to get your power back. And that's what I'm trying to help you with. This is a multifaceted process, and it took a lot of fucking time. You have to almost stay a little reclusive in a sense to protect your energy, to protect your heart. Also, you're going to have people that are just going to be like, oh my gosh, I kind of thought that, I wondered, or I'm so glad. And you're going to have a lot of chirping in your ears. I call them chirpers and chimers. And honestly, anyone who really loves you is just not going to do that. Those kind of people just, they don't help at all. They really don't. And typically those aren't people you were ever very that close with anyways. So just things to keep in mind. I'm going to be discussing this much, much more in future episodes, but it's just really been on my heart lately. And, seeing other women go through this shit, and having a hard time picking themselves back up, I wanted to share my story to hopefully show others it's fucking possible. I am where I am today because I chose my free will. I chose to heal. I chose to use his fucking infidelity and the heartbreak I went through as my teacher to become who the fuck I'm meant to be. And you can do that too. The first thing you have to do is you have to choose that, because our actions follow our thoughts. I would love to know what you thought about this. And if you have any questions, and please share. I am trying to continue to grow my podcast. And thank you to all my YouTube subscribers. Thank you to all my podcast platform subscribers. In fact, if you share with a friend, and if you're on YouTube, if you wouldn't mind downloading this as well on Spotify or Pandora or Apple or any podcast platform, that would help me out so much. All right, my friends, y'all have a great day.